Brandon Lang had never been good at keeping secrets, which made the last 8 years of marriage particularly exhausting. He stood at the edge of Cedar Lake, watching the morning mist curl off the water like smoke. His wife Emily sat on their picnic blanket behind him, unpacking sandwiches their daughter wouldn't eat. Little Chloe was already waist-deep in the shallows, hunting for frogs with the single-minded determination only a 7-year-old could muster. Brandon turned back toward the blanket. Emily glanced up at him, smiling that patient smile she wore when she knew he was working up to something. "So," Brandon began, then stopped, started again. "Remember when we first met and I told you I was from Colorado?" "Yes." Emily unwrapped a sandwich. "Is this going to be one of those I'm actually from Nebraska confessions? Because I married you anyway, Brandon, I can survive that." "I'm not from Colorado," he took a breath. "I'm not from anywhere on Earth." Emily froze mid-unwrap. "I'm an alien." The words tumbled out faster now, like water through a broken dam. "Well, technically I'm Oxurian. We came here 600 years ago, refugees from a war that destroyed our home world. There were 10,000 of us initially, and we discovered we could interbreed with humans, though it's extremely rare. There are only about 40,000 of us now. We age slowly. I'm actually 234, and we live on the moon, the dark side. We've been building a fortress there, and Chloe is going to develop abilities when she hits puberty. Flying, probably. Maybe super strength. It varies. Mine are flight, speed, and enhanced strength. Oh, and the alien invasion is coming. 3 weeks, give or take. That's actually why I'm telling you now." He finished and waited. Emily stared at him for a long moment. Then she carefully set down her sandwich, brushed her hands on her jeans, and said, "Okay, prove it." Brandon blinked. "Just like that? Brandon, you just told me you're a space alien who lives on the moon and our daughter is going to fly. Either you've had a psychotic break or you're telling the truth. So prove it." She gestured at him. "Do something impossible." He looked around. The lake was fairly isolated this early, just a few fishermen on the far shore. "All right." "Don't scream." Brandon lifted off the ground. It wasn't dramatic, no burst of energy, no visible propulsion. He simply rose into the air like someone had pressed an elevator button, stopped at about 20 feet and waved down at her. Emily stood slowly, shading her eyes. "Holy shit." Brandon descended, landing softly on the grass. "I can also do this." He blurred, moving so fast he seemed to simply vanish and reappear on the other side of the lake. Another blur and he was back, holding a startled fish. He tossed it back in the water. "And this." He walked to their SUV, squatted, and lifted the entire vehicle over his head one-handed. "Brandon Lang, put that down before you drop it," Emily yelped. He set it down gently. "So, believe me now." Emily walked up to him, looked him up and down, then punched him in the shoulder. Hard. "What was that for?" "That's for every single time I asked you to run to the store for tampons or milk or bread, and you said you were too tired." Emily's voice climbed an octave. "You can literally move faster than sound, and you made me drive to Target at 9 p.m. when I had morning sickness. I was maintaining my cover. You were being lazy." She punched him again. "And when we moved last year, all those boxes. You could have moved the entire apartment in 10 minutes. It would have looked suspicious. We were the only ones there, Brandon." "Mommy." "Why are you yelling at Daddy?" Chloe had emerged from the lake, dripping and concerned. Emily took a breath, smoothed her hair. "Daddy just told me something that made me very surprised. Sweetie, it's okay." Brandon knelt down to Chloe's level. "Hey, pumpkin. How would you feel about being able to fly someday?" Chloe's eyes went wide. "Like a bird. Like Superman." Emily rubbed her temples. "I need you to explain everything from the beginning. And I mean everything." So he did. They sat on the blanket while Chloe played, and Brandon told Emily about the war that had consumed his home world. About the desperate fleet that had arrived on Earth during what humans called the Renaissance. About the secret integration, the careful breeding programs, the hidden cities carved into lunar rock. "We don't age like you do," Brandon explained. "The oldest among us remember leaving our world. They're 5,000 years old, give or take. We heal fast, but we're not invincible. Disease doesn't really affect us. We're stronger, faster, but not infinitely so." "And the abilities?" Emily asked. "How does that work?" "It's genetic but random. Some of us can fly, some can't. Some have telepathy, some have enhanced senses. My grandfather could walk through walls. My mother could generate electricity. Chloe will manifest something in her teenage years. We won't know what until it happens." Emily processed this. Then, demonstrating why Brandon had fallen in love with her in the first place, she asked, "Why tell me now?" Because they're coming. The temperature seemed to drop. Who's coming? The Cromath Collective. Brandon's face hardened. They're the ones who destroyed our world. They're a hive intelligence, billions of individuals sharing one consciousness. They consume planets, strip them of resources, and move on. They've been sweeping this arm of the galaxy for 300 years, and they just found Earth. Emily grabbed his hand. What are we going to do? We fight. Brandon looked up at the sky. The Oxurian Council is preparing to reveal ourselves to your governments. We have technology, weapons, warriors. We've been preparing for this since we arrived. The moon base isn't just a city. It's a military installation. We knew they'd find us eventually. Does that mean you have to fight? Yes, he squeezed her hand. I'm sorry, but yes. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at him with those steady brown eyes that had first captured his heart in a coffee shop 8 years ago and said, Then we'd better make sure you come home. The revelation happened on a Tuesday. Every screen on Earth displayed the same image simultaneously. The Oxurian Council, 12 figures standing in a semicircle, their features unmistakably human, yet somehow other. The spokesperson was a woman named Petra Alves, someone who had been born in Portugal in 1823 and looked maybe 30. People of Earth, she began, her voice calm and clear. We are the Oxurians. We have lived among you for 600 years. We are your neighbors, your co-workers, your friends. Some of you are married to us. Some of you are descended from us. We have kept ourselves hidden not out of malice, but out of survival. Today, that changes. The feed cut to footage of the lunar surface. Not the barren wasteland everyone knew, but gleaming spires of crystal and metal rising from enormous underground caverns. Cities, parks, forests under environmental domes. Thousands of beings moving through streets lit by some sourceless glow. We fled a war that consumed our world, Petra continued. Now that war has found us again. In 18 days, a hostile force called the Cromath Collective will arrive in your solar system. They will demand your surrender. They will offer terms. They will lie. We know because we've seen them destroy 1,000 worlds. The transmission cut to ships. Not crude rockets, but sleek vessels that looked like liquid metal frozen in the moment before flight. There were thousands of them. We will fight beside you, Petra said. We ask nothing in return. This is our home too. We will not stand by while it burns. The reaction was predictable chaos. Governments denied it was real, then confirmed it was real, then denied they denied it. Social media exploded. Conspiracy theorists experienced simultaneous vindication and cognitive dissonance. The stock market had a collective nervous breakdown. 3 days later, the Oxurian Council met with representatives from every nation on Earth in Geneva. The meeting room was tense. Brandon watched it on a monitor from the Lunar Command Center, where he'd been stationed as part of the defensive coordination team. Emily and Chloe were in a safe house in Montana, far from any major cities. President Catherine Reeves of the United States spoke first. You say you've been here for 600 years. Why didn't you help us before? We've had wars, famines, plagues. Petra's response was measured. Because we made a choice when we arrived, we would not interfere with your development. We would not play God, we would not become conquerors. We integrated, we lived, we loved, but we did not rule. We still don't want to. You have cities on the moon, said Prime Minister James Okafor of Nigeria. Advanced technology. You expect us to believe you won't use that to dominate us. We expect you to believe evidence, Petra replied. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the table. These are the access codes to our lunar cities. Anyone can visit. Anyone can inspect. We have weapons, yes. We've been preparing for the Cromath for centuries, but we have no weapons aimed at Earth. We never have. The Russian ambassador leaned forward. And if we refuse your help, then you'll die? Petra's voice didn't change tone. And we'll probably die with you. The Cromath don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They strip planets to bedrock and move on. We've seen it happen. We barely escaped it. You won't. So we trust you or we die? The Chinese minister's voice was sharp. No, said another council member, a man named Thomas Wright who'd been born in Boston in 1756. You can verify everything we've told you. You have 18 days. Use them wisely. Study our technology, tour our cities, interrogate us. We'll answer every question. But when the Cromath arrive, we need you to be ready. They arrived on day 17. 3 massive vessels, each the size of Manhattan, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Smaller ships swarmed around them like insects around a corpse. The transmission came hours later. Inhabitants of Earth, You are now territory of the Cromath Collective. Surrender your world, you will be integrated. Resistance will be met with extinction. The voice wasn't threatening. It was simply stating facts, the way you might tell someone the weather forecast. Earth's response was unified for the first time in recorded history. Go to hell! Brandon suited up in the command center. Around him, thousands of other Octurians were doing the same. The suits weren't like spacesuits. They were form-fitting, enhanced with technology that would protect against the void while amplifying their natural abilities. All fighters, this is command. The voice crackled through his helmet. Earth forces are launching from 63 locations worldwide. You'll be supporting their air and space elements. Make yourselves visible. They need to see us fighting with them. Brandon lifted off from the lunar surface with 500 others. Below him, massive rail guns were charging, weapons that could punch through a moon if needed. The Octurian fleet was deploying, ships sliding out of hidden hangars like sharks entering open water. He accelerated, breaking lunar orbit, heading toward Earth's exosphere where the first engagement would happen. The human forces were already there. F-35s, Eurofighters, Russian MiGs, Chinese J-20s, all of them scrambling into formation. Missiles were arming. Pilots were breathing fast, sharp breaths over the comms. Then Brandon flew past an F-35, matching its speed, and waved. The pilot's scream of surprise cut across every frequency. What the hell? United States Air Force, this is the Octurian Guard, Brandon broadcasted. We're here to help. Try to keep up. More Octurians appeared. Some flew under their own power. Others rode sleek fighters that made human jets look like crop dusters. They formed up alongside Earth's forces, a combined fleet of the impossible and the barely possible. Holy shit, someone said over the comms. They're real. They're really flying, another voice added. Focus, people. That was a colonel, voice tight with stress. We have incoming. The Cromath ships entered Earth's atmosphere like meteors, burning and uncaring. They didn't slow. They didn't attempt communication. They just came. The battle started at 40,000 feet. Human missiles launched first, arcing up toward the descending Cromath vessels. Some hit. Most were swatted aside by point defense systems. The Cromath returned fire with weapons that turned the sky purple with energy discharge. Brandon dove under a beam that would have vaporized him, came up behind a Cromath fighter and punched through its hull. The ship broke apart, pieces spinning away. Around him, other Octurians were doing the same, moving between human aircraft and enemy fire, shielding, striking, dying. An Octurian woman named Diana got hit by a plasma burst and simply vanished, turned to vapor in an instant. Brandon had known her for 90 years. Concentrate fire on the capital ships, someone shouted. The Octurian fleet arrived then, massive vessels dropping from lunar orbit, their weapons already firing. Beams of coherent light lanced out, punching into Cromath hulls. Human railguns on the ground joined in, turning the sky into a light show that would have been beautiful if it wasn't terrifying. On the ground, a different battle was starting. Cromath ground forces teleported directly into major cities. New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, Mumbai. They appeared in swarms, bipedal things that looked like someone had tried to build a person from spare knives. Earth's armies mobilized, and then the Octurian Guard portaled in. Brandon's brother Nathan appeared in Times Square with 5,000 Octurian soldiers. They simply stepped out of rifts in space, wearing armor that looked like liquid mercury, carrying weapons that hummed with potential energy. A U.S. Army captain stared at them. Who the hell are you? Nathan grinned. You're back up. Where do you need us? All over the world, the same scene played out. Octurian and human forces met, exchanged brief introductions, and then fought side by side against an enemy that wanted to erase them both. In Times Square, Nathan watched a human soldier take a hit meant for him, watched her fall, and caught her before she hit the ground. He passed her to a medic, and then threw himself at the Cromath line with everything he had. In the sky above Tokyo, an F-15 pilot named Rodriguez found himself flying wing with an Octurian woman who could shoot lightning from her hands. When his missiles ran out, she cleared his targets with bolts that lit up the night. In Mumbai, human tanks rolled alongside Octurian walkers, machines that stood 30 feet tall and hit like artillery. The battle raged for 14 hours. The Cromath had numbers. The Cromath had experience. The Cromath had conquered 1,000 worlds, but they'd never fought Earth and Octurians together. The turning point came when Brandon, exhausted and bleeding from a dozen wounds, led a strike team directly into the largest Cromath capital ship. They fought through corridors filled with enemies, human marines and Oxyrian warriors side by side, until they reached the central consciousness node. "Plant it!" Brandon shouted. A Marine sergeant named Williams slammed down the device, a bomb designed by combined human and Oxyrian engineering. They ran, the ship shuddered, and then it exploded. The blast took out the other two capital ships with it, some kind of chain reaction through their linked systems. Without the capital ships, the Cromath forces faltered, their coordination breaking down. Earth pressed the advantage. The last Cromath ship fled the solar system 8 hours later. Brandon floated in low orbit, watching the sun rise over the Pacific. Around him, the debris field from the battle glittered like a second asteroid belt. Ships, bodies, wreckage. The cost had been steep. Earth had lost 62,000 people. The Oxyrians had lost 8,000, but they'd won. Brandon descended slowly, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. He landed at the Montana safe house just as Emily ran out the door. She hit him at a full sprint, nearly knocking him over despite his enhanced strength. "You're alive!" He held her tight. "Is Chloe okay?" "She's fine. She's inside watching the news." "Brandon, they're calling you all heroes, every channel, every country. They're saying we couldn't have one without you." "We couldn't have one without them either." Brandon pulled back to look at her. "It went both ways, Emily. We taught them how to fight the Cromath. They taught us how to die for something that matters." Chloe burst out of the house. "Daddy, you're on TV." He was, they all were. Footage of Oxyrians and humans fighting together, saving each other, bleeding together. The narrative was already forming, the story of how two species had become one people in the space of a single day. 3 months later, Brandon stood in Geneva again. The new treaty was being signed. Not between Earth and the Oxyrians, but among all the nations of Earth with the Oxyrians as witnesses. Because Petra had been right. They didn't want to rule. They just wanted to live. The treaty recognized Oxyrian sovereignty over the lunar cities. It established embassies. It created exchange programs. It opened trade in technology and ideas. But most importantly, it acknowledged what everyone already knew. They were one people now. Different, yes, but united. President Reeves shook Petra's hand. "Thank you." "For everything." "Thank you," Petra replied, "for giving us a home worth fighting for." Brandon watched from the observer's gallery, Emily on one side, Chloe on the other. His daughter was holding a toy spaceship, making it dive and swoop through imaginary battles. "Daddy," Chloe looked up at him, "when I get my powers, can I be a flyer like you?" Brandon smiled. "You can be anything you want, Pumpkin." "I want to be a flyer," she went back to her ship. "And a scientist and maybe a teacher." Emily laughed softly. "Ambitious. She gets that from you." Brandon took his wife's hand. Below them, the ceremony continued. Representatives from every nation, from every Oxyrian city coming together to build something new. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. Outside the windows, the sky was clear and blue. No enemy ships, no invasion, just clouds and sunlight and the promise of tomorrow. Somewhere up there, hidden on the far side of the moon, Oxyrian children were playing in parks built by refugees who dared to hope they might find sanctuary. Human tourists were walking those same streets, marveling at technology that seemed like magic, making friends with beings who'd hidden among them for centuries. And somewhere else, far beyond the edge of the solar system, the Cromath Collective was regrouping, analyzing their defeat, planning their next move. But that was a problem for another day. Today, Brandon Lang was just a man standing with his family, watching the world change, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. All of them. Human and Oxyrian, people of Earth. He squeezed Emily's hand. She squeezed back. And Chloe's toy spaceship kept flying, soaring through battles yet to come, in a future that belonged to them all.